Welcome, everyone. We like to get these started a couple minutes early to give everyone a chance to get settled and logged in. This is going to be a fun one. We appreciate everyone joining, and it's kind of funny. Joe and I were talking a little bit before this thing started about some of the guilty pleasures from the band perspective. So, obviously, we don't want to offend anybody, but we've all got them. But this is going to be a lot of fun, kind of going through some of these, and so yeah, we're excited to get going. Give us 2 more minutes while we let everybody hop on, and we'll get started promptly on the top of the hour. Now, I've got to confess, Joe, while we wait for everybody to log on. I don't know who's the middle guy. That's not Michael McDonald, is it? Who is that guy?
That is who that is, actually.
Okay.
How's that for a? I always hated pictures of myself singing because that's how I looked.
Yeah, he gets into it.
Oh yeah. I can already tell you there are people out there that are going to be quickly offended by Alanis Morissette being on the opening slide of this deck.
Yeah, but I think she fits.
She fits, man. My older sister wore her album out.
And it's kind of, I guess this is a pretty good indicator when you say her album, because she's had more, right? But I think
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good
you're
point.
on this list. That's one of the qualifiers, right? You're on this
Yeah,
list if you say your album.
exactly.
Well, let's get started. And please introduce Joe Dallas from TradePending. He's going to help us with this. And I know a lot of dealers are looking for and trying to identify some really creative, different ways to source inventory. It's kind of tough out there, and so we're going to jump right into it. And I know, Joe, you've got some slides to introduce yourself. So without further ado, let's just jump right in.
Sounds great. Yeah, thanks, Bart, and big thank you to the driving sales team for teeing this up for us. They've been good partners of ours for several years there, and originally I remember the old startup alley at Driving Sales Executive Summit, and you guys have always kind of been good to up and coming companies. So we're looking forward to having some fun with this today. As Bart mentioned, my name is Joe Dallas. I'm the Chief Business Officer over at TradePending, and I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this topic today from a musical standpoint. I've been playing guitar for as long as I can remember, and here we have pictured a 17-year-old Joe Dallas at a coffee shop, probably covering a really cheesy pop song. So before we jump in today, just a couple of housekeeping items. This is being recorded for everybody that registered, and you'll notice that you're in listen only mode. It's not because we don't want to hear from you, but we just want to keep the audio nice and crisp for everyone. So if you have a question, please drop it into the chat box, and we'll get to those as they come in. So Bart, if you see any drop in there and that I'm not noticing, please jump in and interrupt me.
Will do.
All right, so hey, before we get started, let's start off with chatting in. If there's any band that comes to mind or artist that comes to mind that's kind of a guilty pleasure that's embarrassing for you, just go ahead and drop that in the chat box. I'm interested to see. And then also, if any of the references that we make are offensive, if you think they shouldn't be there, put that in there as well. All right, let's jump in. 10 inventory sourcing ideas. Number 1, let's talk about a buying center. We know that there are products out there that lend themselves to this, and some that are even called buying centers. But let's talk about setting one up at your dealership. What does that really mean? What does it take? Well, maybe it's a dedicated URL, like doesn't even have to be brand specific to your dealer or your dealer group. But a dedicated URL that's sole purpose is to have traffic go there to solely find information about what it would take to sell their car. So valuemycar.ca is a really good example of a property that is owned by an auto group but is debranded. Now, depending on your strategy, that might work, it might not. Some dealer groups have launched this thinking, well, and rightly so, depending on the market, that, hey, my brand is what I leverage, so we're going to create a Joe Dallas Auto Group buying site. But it doesn't have to be brand specific. But it gives you some flexibility to stretch maybe outside of your PMA. We have people driving traffic to this from different campaigns, but also with some traditional outlets like direct mail. And the really important part of this is that when you're talking about acquiring inventory, you really need to just forget about selling them a car. That could be a byproduct, it might not be. But just, as Hootie and the Blowfish says, holding their hand through the process of selling their car. And one thing that to keep in mind as well is that as a dealer, you have a profound amount of knowledge about the used car marketplace, and so oftentimes, we're just trying to bridge that gap and reach more consumers and share information about their vehicle relative to the marketplace. And you asked, does this kind of thing work? Well, in the month of July on this site, with the highest converting trade tool in the marketplace, Snap by TradePending, we produced over 1,200 trade-in opportunities off of this site alone, and almost 77% of those opportunities came off a mobile device. So really, stand up a URL. It doesn't take a whole lot to do this. A little bit of upfront work gives you an opportunity to create a new center for acquiring inventory. So moving on. Number 2 is your service lane. Just imagine if you had a constant source of people coming into your dealership every day that had vehicles that you might be able to put into your inventory. Well, I want it that way, just like the Backstreet Boys. Here's a really, really good, couple of ideas to implement in your service lane. One is every day your CRM is spitting out these appointment reminders. Hey, remember, this Friday at 2 o'clock, you're coming in. Well, why not insert a link to say, also, do you wonder what the market's like for your vehicle right now? How much is your car worth? And then send them to a really high converting trade tool like Snap by TradePending in order to precede that conversation when they come in. The service lane appointment reminders is just another kind of a little bit of upfront work, get the train on those tracks, and then every customer is coming into your service lane is a new opportunity. Staying in the service lane, and this gets maybe a little bit more nuts and bolts here, but they're already in there. They've already paid for their service. It's a free ride. Why not have your service folks print out a trade report for these folks in your service lane? Every one of our customers gets a unique link to an ungated version of our trade tool that your service lane person can just sit in there, type up exactly the car. You already know what the mileage is, print them out a trade range report and say, hey, do you want to talk to the used car manager? Because he might be interested in buying this car from you. It's a huge source that's probably way underutilized in the marketplace today that isn't being monetized fully. On to number 4. Still in the service lane, let's talk about some sort of standalone center in your service lane or in your waiting area that allows consumers to get this information themselves. The fancy version is a company like Digital Dealership Systems that has these, brick and mortar is the wrong term, but a standalone legitimate kiosk that might do many, many things, one of which is integrated with us. Then you can check on what your trade value range is. And then the still gets it done version, which is just a simple tablet on a stand, loaded up with our trade tool or a trade tool, hopefully our trade tool, shameless plugs here, that allows consumers to go through that trade process. Or we do have dealers out there today that have someone in variable ops, a salesperson, someone that's dedicated, that walks around and talks to service customers about their vehicle. And one of the things that this helps do, really everybody on the line, is just bridge that gap between your variable operations department and your fixed operations department. There is huge untapped potential coming out of your service lane. So this is definitely, three things right off the top that are pretty easy to do. So we've got the appointment reminders. We have the kiosk and printing out trade reports for consumers. So we're going to get into our first poll question here and ask which one of these three things have you tried to implement in your dealership? So we're going to
Nice.
run that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this thing on. While I'm doing this, um, the first of all, I just noticed that there's a major typo in this, Joe, so that's awesome. While I'm doing this, and please go ahead and submit your answers there. We've got Matthew says Steely Dan, and I've got to protest big time on that. That's you call that a guilty pleasure. That's wow. And then Quint says Anne Murray. So Anne Murray's the bomb is what we've got there. So a little confession from Quint. So while we're doing that, go ahead and fill this out. Which ones of these, or which one of these tree ideas have you currently tried before? We'll give it about, what do you think, about 20 more seconds? Joe, is that good
Yeah,
enough, or do you want to?
that's
Okay.
perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Looks like we're getting some pretty good voting coming in here. Oh, and Justin says acoustic alchemy. I don't know if I'm familiar with acoustic alchemy, but
I will have to look them up.
apparently they qualify for the list. Oh, and then Bryce. Hey Bryce, how you doing? Bryce says little feet. We're going back there. That's a little way
There
back.
you
So
go.
yeah. All right. So let me go ahead and turn this off then, if that's okay.
Yep, sounds
And
great.
it looks like uh, there's quite a few people that haven't tried this before, and I think the kiosk in the waiting area is the big opportunity. That's a great idea. And I don't think anybody's ever, not too many people have tried it. And looks like the printing the trade-in report is one of the most used.
Yeah, totally. If you look at it, from an outsider standpoint, um, it's just such a source of constant traffic, right? And historically, uh, variable and fixed don't intermingle that well. And so if you can do things to, help bridge that gap to connect the service manager and the used car manager, you just create so much more, opportunity for inventory.
Yeah,
All
that's a
right,
good one.
let's keep going. We're about halfway through. The next one, guys, this is pure money. And it's awesome and it's free. It is like crackling rose. We found a dream in this. Last October, I believe it was, Google launched the ability to add custom products to your Google My Business page. And by adding a value your trade CTA on this, we have seen incredible it just increases incrementally in trade-in opportunities, inventory opportunities just by adding this. We can even see, what the referrer is in our lead database. And when dealers do this, I mean, Bart, it's like every other lead comes in as a Google My Business referrer. So we've seen just incredible progress from that. If you don't know how to do this, reach out to me or our support department. We've got the documentation and our knowledge base on how to do this with your Google My Business page. And I'm telling you, this is awesome, especially when it refers to a really high converting trade tool like Snap by TradePending. So Google My Business, custom products, do it today. You'll not regret it. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about taking it to the street like the Doobie Brothers. Um, this is one thing that, you kind of have to ask, is there somebody in your dealership today that is devoted to in some way buying from private sellers? We know that Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and other outlets give, even Auto Trader has private listings. Is there someone there that is at least spending part of their time trying to street purchase? And this is more relevant today than ever because you as a dealer know how inventory is worth so much right now. The average vehicle pricing is way up due to the pandemic, due to the shortage and scarcity of vehicles out there. So for consumers, maybe you're looking at this car thinking, hey, it's really close to being frontline ready. I might even as a dealer be able to offer a little bit more than the consumer's asking. Or maybe I could just save this consumer a ton of headache. And a little shout out to my buddy Tom Gregg, who runs Vehicle Acquisition Network. This is a platform that assists in doing this, that streamlines it so that, from a communication standpoint, from finding inventory standpoint, can help make that easier for whoever in the dealership, used car manager or inventory manager that's doing this. But huge marketplace that if you're not proactive around, you kind of miss out on as a dealer. And we have many, many dealers in our dealer base that are doing this really proactively and are having a lot of success with it, especially using our methodology and ARC conversion and Snap as kind of the basis of communication for the consumer. Number 7, let's talk about landing page campaigns. Now, this is one thing that we tend to maybe overdo from a graphical standpoint, but reminding customers that, hey, you're still a valued customer. Maybe send this out to 2 years, maybe customers that bought 2 years ago. They're kind of in this service cycle, and just say, hey, Mr. Consumer, Joe here, General Manager at Joe Dallas Ford. Have you been wondering what your car's worth? See, you were in for service a couple months ago. I've got some really aggressive inventory goals for the fall. I might be interested in buying your car back from you. Click here to see how much it's worth in 10 seconds or less. And does this stuff work? It absolutely does. We track in our own analytics, just really simple, plain text emails that are kind of slanted that way, convert extremely well. That gives you more opportunities to acquire directly from your own customer database. You're sitting on a gold mine with that kind of historical data, and this is a really good way to kind of self-fuel your inventory, to acquire more inventory. Any questions so far?
No questions. I think let's just kind of roll through some of these. Once again, if anybody does have questions, chime in. It's the same box that you guys have been putting your guilty pleasures from band perspective, and we'd love to get as many as possible. And I'll just kind of let you keep going.
Awesome. Well, Nickelback is definitely one that I admit that for a little while I did like, until I realized that every song they put out sounded exactly the same. So, all right, number 8. We're going to kind of stay in the landing page arena here, but we're going to layer on paid ads and social. Oops, sorry about that. We're going to layer on, paid ads and social. What are you doing today to use Facebook ads, use Google AdWords to message to your potential consumers? Are you sharing the same dream like Billy Ocean across all these platforms? And then what kind of messaging are you using in these? We've seen a lot of success with trade in, trade up, right? Maybe you have some equity in that vehicle, quote equity that then you can leverage against maybe a newer or nicer car. We've seen, as you see, the Stanley Auto Group did extremely well with acquiring inventory by using this kind of messaging across social and across Google AdWords. So totally another thing that you can do. If your agency isn't doing this proactively today, you got to get them on it, because there's definitely opportunity to be had out there. And then, one thing that is maybe a little bit more sophisticated, that is definitely kind of keeping up with the changes, like our friends over at REO Speedwagon, is trying new audiences based on geo targeting. So there are companies out there today that can look at where you are and have been, can build audiences off of people that have been on your lot, on your competitor's lot in the past 30, 60, 90 days, and then allow you to message to those people. This is a little bit more advanced and might take a little bit more work. It's also by some measures a little bit more expensive, but also extremely ROI heavy, just because the audience is so relevant. And so if you have any questions about this, do reach out to me and I'll introduce you. We have somebody on our team here at TradePending that is a subject matter expert on this, that can definitely help you navigate how to do this correctly. But definitely kind of an exciting thing to layer onto your inventory acquisition goals. All right, we're at number 10 already. We went through this thing really fast. So, oops. Sorry about that. Last thing is Facebook integration. We know that we're still kind of being forced to be in love with Facebook. It seems like it's been around for decades now, but it's still a hub. It's where a lot of eyeballs are. So as a dealer, if you're using Facebook to say, Facebook Messenger to communicate with consumers, if you're have your inventory on Facebook, you should definitely have a custom tab that is for valuing your trade on there. We have a custom script that can go on there. It acts just like the regular trade tool on your website, converts really well. In fact, on Facebook, it doesn't even ask for additional information because you're already logged into Facebook. So again, just an incremental, use that social hub, your Facebook business page to fuel potential inventory acquisition. It's definitely something that's still relevant today, despite the fact that Facebook's been around for a really, really long time. So let's roll back through them real quick. These are just all the incremental things that you can do to potentially fuel your inventory acquisition goals. Number one, set up that buying center. Just stand up a URL of some kind that is solely devoted to inventory acquisition. Forget about trying to sell cars. It's just buy, buy, buy. And then don't forget about your service lane. It's foot traffic in your dealership. It's people with cars that might be interested in selling them. So precede them with appointment reminders when they're there. Show them what their car's worth, and let them initiate it with things like service lane kiosks. A really strong kind of area of the dealership that needs to be leveraged. Number 5, Google My Business products. If you haven't set that up yet, it's free money. It's absolutely going to work, especially when it's directed towards a really high converting trade tool like Snap by TradePending. Just do it. And if you need help with it, just reach out to me or our support department. We have the documentation on how to set that up. It's extremely easy. Number 6, taking it to the streets. Look to those listing sites like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace to find people that are private sellers. Engage with those. Spend a little bit of time on that. They are out there and can be in your inventory. Including number 7, including some sort of strategy every now and then around trying to proactively get consumers that have already purchased from you to come back in with their vehicle is a really powerful methodology. And then layering on paid social and search campaigns for trade in, trade up can also just be another incremental increase in inventory. And then finally, using companies like Reveal Mobile and others to find geo-targeted audiences that were relevant in the last 30, 60, 90 days that maybe have been on your lot or your competitors' lots. And then finally, just a good down and dirty Facebook integration on a custom tab on your business Facebook business page. So these 10 things, are any of them going to bring you 100 new pieces of inventory? Probably not, but incrementally, these can all just set up a really good source for inventory in a time where, frankly, dealers are starved for it. So just pick one, pick 2, but implement these and you'll definitely see more inventory coming into your dealership. So appreciate everybody playing along today. We know it's kind of a fun topic, and to wrap it around some subpar guilty pleasure music. Again, my name's Joe. I'm the Chief Business Officer over at TradePending. Feel free to reach out to me, joe@tradepending.com, if you have any questions. And Bart, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we've actually had some come in. First of all, I want to shout out Michael McDonald. He made your list twice because I believe he was the one who was singing "Taking It to the Streets." So good. Yeah, that's unprecedented. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Matt says double McDonald's. So you kind of answered one of the questions that came in, but maybe we can elaborate a little bit on it. And it's around Google My Business.
Mhm.
That is like it's kind of cool to see what Google has done with Google My Business in the last couple of years. It's always been there. It's been important, but they are really pumping it up right now, and it's a huge traffic source for a lot of dealers. So I don't know if you want to spend a little bit of time, or you'd rather people reach out with you on, maybe some of the tactics that work the best with Google My Business, or some of the ways to approach that from a strategy standpoint.
Yeah, so the beauty of it really is that it's still organic traffic. It's a redirect from that custom products area, and for most of the dealers that are doing it really well, they're sending it to a dedicated landing page within their website. So there's a couple of different things that you can do with that, and I'm more than happy to talk through anybody that has questions about it, and share that documentation that we have on how best to do that.
Okay. We've got a really, really, really solid question from Sabrina. She says, if you do a buying center URL, you're competing with Carvana and CarMax. So what type of an SEM budget do you recommend in order to make it effective?
Um, I think it kind of depends on probably your marketplace. If you're in Queens, New York versus Billings, Montana, that's probably going to look really different, right? I would say I would ask, how big is your marketing budget, right? How much are you spending today on SEM as a total, and then take 10% of that and put it towards driving traffic to a buying center. And that is a really good point, that in the even before the scarcity that we're in supply and demand that we're experiencing now, Carvana and CarMax were eating up inventory in the market. Um, so that is a really good way to combat that. So maybe specifically you call out some keywords that might steal a little traffic away from that in your local market. But yeah, just segment 10% of your budget and just try it. We know that the SEM budgets are can vary greatly depending on the dealership, but start small and start small and then build from there.
Yeah, Christian's asking, there's a chance maybe a little bit of an elevator pitch, or as he calls it, a tweet. He's basically asking if you could sum up what you guys do in a Twitter post. What would that be?
Yeah, so essentially, our goal is to be a conversion tool to make it easier for dealers and consumers to, have productive conversations. We have two products today that are based, solely on the relevancy of market and market data wrapped around what's unique about the inventory on your site. That would be our product superlatives, and how much trades are worth based on the marketplace and the zip code. Everything that we do is hyper local, so it's relevant to where you're sitting right now, and so our goal is really to be an information bridge between a consumer who's looking for information and a dealer who has it.
Nice. That's a good thing that I'll give you a hard time. It's a good thing that Twitter upped their character limit.
That
But
was that was over 140 characters for sure.
that's pretty close. Sancho is asking, will this recording be sent out? Yes, I think a lot of people are going to take this and take these 10 items and just use them as a checklist, right? And kind of go through these and find out, to your point, maybe pick the two or three that from a prioritization standpoint, they want to tackle immediately, but then just have this to grow those incremental deals. So yes, are going to send this recording out when we're done here, so you'll be able to have it. Um, Here's a question around, and I think you've given us some really good tactical things to do. There's another piece of this, and as I've been watching you go through this, I've seen some of these in some of these slides. But from a language perspective, I guess a wording or a content side of the house, what are some of the calls to action, or some of the text or the copy that's really worked for some of your dealers?
Yeah, so value your trade. For some consumers might be an abstract idea. So the great thing about our tool is that the look and feel and the call to actions can be updated in customized based on whatever your needs are. So we have seen messaging, like wonder what your car's worth, question mark, uh, work really well, because at the end of the day, that's what generally a consumer who has that question, and it's exactly how they're asking it. Wonder what my car's worth, or how much is my car worth, or ready to sell, depending on what page they're on. So certainly, tweaking those can help as well, and we can certainly do that internally with our tools.
Yeah, what I think is cool about what you said is, and you mentioned earlier, which leads me to another question that I got in a second, but don't you quit trying to sell them a car. You're acquiring a vehicle, and the difference in it speaks volumes. Like, what's your trade worth implies I want you to trade your car and sell you something else versus what's
Totally.
your car worth, right? Totally different verbiage,
Yep. Yep.
totally different
Totally.
intent. So from a structure standpoint, you've got the marketing side of the dealership that's really out there engaging and pushing. From a staffing perspective, I would think that, like, obviously sales reps or maybe even BDC agents on the side, on one side of it, are gonna try to convert that customer. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but if your total goal is vehicle acquisition, who takes these leads, and what are successful stores doing to make sure they optimize the trade piece,
Yeah.
and get those vehicles?
Well, one of the things, there's a couple of keys to success or higher quote close rates on that kind of thing. Is one is expediency. We know that we like to picture consumer behavior like a linear line, and it's not. So when they're having those questions about their trade, they're not in that mindset for hours, right? When a trade lead comes in, expediency is huge, response time, and then how you message from there. I would challenge everyone to do a little self shopping on your trade in CRM replies, because many times we'll secret shop our own dealers, and I send in a trade lead, and a CRM reply comes back that hey, what car are you interested in, when can you come in, right? That is a really good way to blow up a good opportunity.
Right.
So having really good messaging and trade specific automated follow up is really, really important in your CRM.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Uh, and I'm assuming that, I'm once again not shamelessly plugging you guys, but some of these questions about the tactical side of the house, you've got people on your team that can help them set up those workflows and make sure everything's seamless. And
Totally, and the
yeah.
other thing about our Snap, our trade tool specifically, is because it's market data based. We're not saying that, hey, we're trade pending, this is a good number, trust us. You as the dealer aren't saying that either. All we're doing is saying, okay, here's the marketplace. Here's what vehicles like yours are going for out in the market. There's nothing I can do about that. And it should be worth, barring any outliers, it should be worth between these two numbers.
Hmm.
Um, when can you swing by so I can give you like an actual firm number on it and put my hands on the car? That kind of messaging is educational, and it's also very low friction, and that lends itself towards better conversations.
Right. Well, Joe, thank you so much. This has been really helpful. And once again, everyone, we're going to send this out. We'll actually put it also on the community, so we'll try to get some dialogue going, because this is 10 quick things that, if you unpackage them or you open them up, they go pretty deep. And so, thanks for giving that insight, and throwing some ideas out that maybe people haven't tried before, as they're looking to try and acquire vehicles before they actually hit the auction block or the trade-in area.
Totally. Well, thanks for giving us this platform to do that and to talk about bands that are guilty pleasures. It was a fun discussion. And again, if anybody wants to reach out to me for anything, just Joe at TradePending.com, and be more than happy to further the discussion.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. We appreciate it. This is a great forum, a great opportunity to share these ideas, and thanks TradePending for throwing those out there for everybody to have. And thanks everyone for hopping on and learning a little something. And I'm sure we'll see you guys on future webinars. So thanks a lot.
See you, everybody.